Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. And in this video, we will go through a few more practice questions for Microsoft certification AZ-900. So let's start. Question number one: what are resource groups in Azure? So as you would have already studied from Microsoft certification content. So resource groups, basically, it's a folder structure in Azure in which you could organize your resources like databases, virtual machines, virtual networks, right? Or almost any other type of resource. So, yes, option number C would be the correct answer. And if you have to go in depth on this, so you can always come to this link, okay, on Microsoft build what is Azure Resource Manager, and within that you have the benefits of using Resource Manager, understanding the scope. Then you have this, what is a resource group, right? A resource group is a container that enables you to manage related resources for an Azure solution. By using this resource group, you can coordinate changes to the related resources, right? Basically, you can easily coordinate changes to the related resources, which would be in one resource group. Yeah. And then there are some important factors to consider when defining your resource group. So do study these as well. Okay, these might be handy for some other question. Then resiliency of Azure resource group. Study this. Resource group location alignment. Resolve concurrent operations. If they are concurrent operations, how do you resolve them? Okay, so do study this. I'll leave the links of all the questions in the description of the video. Okay. Second question: a hacker group recently attacked your video streaming website, and all your resources were exhausted and unavailable to your users. What can you do to prevent this type of attack in the future? Okay. So the answer to this would be use Azure DDoS protection. Okay. And more on this, if you come here, you have this DDoS, distributed denial of service. So here they have clearly mentioned what is Azure DDoS protection. Okay, so distributed denial of service attacks are some of the largest availability and security concerns facing customers that are moving their applications to the cloud. Okay, so a DDoS attack attempts to exhaust an application's resources, making the application unavailable to legitimate users. Okay, this was asked in the question. So DDoS attacks can be targeted at any endpoint that is publicly reachable through the internet. So Azure DDoS protection combined with application design best practices provides enhanced DDoS mitigation features to defend against DDoS attacks. Okay, it's automatically tuned to help protect your specific Azure resources in a virtual network. Protection is simple to enable on any new or existing virtual network, and it requires no application or resource changes. Okay, so this is the distributed denial of service protection. Okay, so do study this. Then basically this protects at layer 3 and layer 4 network layers. Okay, do remember this also. And if you want for web applications protection at layer 7, you need to add protection at the application layer using a WAF offering. Okay, for that you can visit this site. Okay, so do study this also. So yeah, this is the answer. In the defense in-depth model, what is the role of the network layer? Okay, so let's go to one article. We have describe defense in depth. Okay, so the objective of defense in depth is to protect information and prevent it from being stolen by those who aren't authorized to access it. Okay, so you should know this first of all. Then this strategy uses a series of mechanisms to slow the advance of an attack that aims at acquiring unauthorized access to data. And then there are layers of defense in depth. You can visualize defense in depth as a set of layers with the data to be secured at the center and all other layers functioning to protect the central data layer, right? So here's a brief overview of the role of each layer. So here if you see, the network layer basically limits communication between resources through segmentation and access controls. Okay, here's the network layer. So basically, it limits communication between resources and enforces access controls. Okay, and likewise, do read the functioning of other layers as well. Okay, everything is provided over here. I'll leave the link in the description. Okay, you should be aware of these layers. Data stored in an Azure storage account is automatically copied twice. However, please remember that data in Azure storage accounts is always replicated 3 times in the primary region. Okay. Azure storage accounts copies data 3 times within the primary region and keep them in sync. Okay. So if you have to study more on this is already mentioned here. Again, Azure storage redundancy, and if you see here, redundancy in the primary region, data in an Azure storage account is always replicated 3 times in the primary region. And then it offers 2 options for how your data is replicated in the primary region. So you should be aware of that also. Okay. So please do read this article as well. Okay. So that if any other question comes in, you should be able to answer it. So yeah, copy twice means this is false because it's 3 times, right? So yeah, false. Which service do you use to allow resources to securely communicate and segment and isolate network traffic? Azure Virtual Networks. Okay, these are used to enable resources to securely communicate with each other. So answer would be Azure Virtual Network, and we can read more on this. There's this again on Microsoft build only. If you search this, what is Azure Virtual Network? Azure Virtual Network is a service that provides the fundamental building block for your private network in Azure. An instance of the service, that is a virtual network, enables many types of Azure resources to securely communicate with each other, the internet and on-premises networks. These Azure resources include virtual machines. Okay. A virtual network is similar to a traditional network that you would operate in your own data center, but it brings extra benefits of the Azure infrastructure such as scale, availability, and isolation. Okay, then there are these key scenarios why you can use Azure Net virtual network, right? Communication of Azure resources with the internet, communication between Azure resources, communication with on-premises resources, filtering of network traffic, routing of network traffic, integration with Azure services. Okay, so do read this also. So basically, to if you have to allow resources to securely communicate and segment and isolate network traffic, Azure Virtual Network is the correct answer. Which of the following is true about disk storage? Okay. It is recommended to use unmanaged disks for cost efficiency. Containers are used as disk storage. If a virtual machine is stopped, you will still pay for storage. If there is a disk for the operating system and at least one disk for storage. Okay, so for this, do go and study this introduction to Azure Managed Disks. So Azure Managed Disks are block level storage volumes that are managed by Azure and used with Azure Virtual Machines. Managed disks are like a physical disk in an on-premises server, but virtualized. With managed disks, all you have to do is to specify the disk size, disk type, and provision the disk. Once you provision the disk, Azure handles the rest. The availability is of ultra disk, premium solid state drives, and standard SSDs and standard hard disk, that is HDD. Okay. Alternatively, you could use an Azure Elastic SAN as your VM storage. An Elastic SAN allows you to consolidate the storage for all your workloads into a single storage backend and can be more cost effective if you have a sizable amount of large scale IO intensive workloads and top tier databases. Again, if you want to know what is Azure Elasticsearch, again you can go to this link. Okay. Benefits of managed disks like highly durable and available, simple and scalable, integration with availability sets, integration with availability zones. Azure backup support is also there. Azure disk backup you can choose. Granular access control also you can provide. Okay, that is Azure role based access control you can provide. You can upload your VHD as well. Then you can have security also, private links, encryption, server-side encryption, Azure disk encryption. Okay, then there are three main disk roles in Azure: OS disk, data disk, and the temporary disk. These roles map to disks that are attached to your virtual machine. Okay, so read these also. Okay, so yeah, coming back to this, the answer is B, C, and D, because true is asked. What is true? So yes, containers are used as disk storage. That is true. And if a virtual machine is stopped, you still pay for storage. Yes, obviously, because you are using the storage, right? Even though you have stopped the virtual machine. And then there is a disk for the operating system and at least one disk for storage. That is also true. Okay, you should go and read this entire document. Okay. Okay, now let's go to next question. Which feature within Azure collects all of the logs from various resources into a central dashboard where you can run queries, view graphs, and create alerts on certain events? So, obviously, if you would have studied, you would know the answer is Azure Monitor. Okay, Azure Monitor is basically a centralized dashboard that collects all the logs, metrics, and events from your resources. So, if you have to study more on this, again, come to this site, Microsoft built. You search Azure Monitor overview. Azure Monitor is a comprehensive monitoring solution for collecting, analyzing, and responding to monitoring data from your cloud and on premises environments. You can use Azure Monitor to maximize the availability and performance of your applications and services. It helps you understand how your applications are performing and allows you to manually and programmatically respond to system events. Okay. And Azure Monitor collects and aggregates the data from every layer and component of your system across multiple Azure and non-Azure subscriptions and tenants. It stores it in a common data platform for consumption by a common set of tools that can correlate, analyze, visualize, and or respond to the data. You can also integrate other Microsoft and non-Microsoft tools. Okay. So this is the high level structure. Okay, do study this, go through this. The diagram depicts the Azure monitoring system components. You should know that. And then how Azure Monitor can collect data from multiple data sources. Okay. And then data collection and routing, how the routing is done. Then there is data platform. Okay, do study this also. Then consumption, Azure portal, insights. Okay, visualize, analyze, integrate. Okay. So this is a long article over here. Okay. Do study this also. Okay. The next question is, what benefit does a content delivery network CDN provide its users? Okay. So the answer to this is allows you to reduce the traffic coming into a web server for static unchanging files such as images, videos, and PDFs. Okay. First of all, you should know what is a content delivery network, that is CDN. So a content delivery network is a distributed network of servers that can efficiently deliver web content to users. So this is the primary role of content delivery network. A content delivery network store cached content on edge servers in point of presence locations that are close to end users to minimize latency. Okay. Azure Content Delivery Network offers developers a global solution for rapidly delivering high bandwidth content to users by caching their content at strategically placed physical nodes across the world. Azure Content Delivery Network can also accelerate dynamic content which can't get cached by using various network optimization using Content Delivery Network POPs, for example, route optimization to bypass Border Gate Protocol BGP. The benefits of using Azure Content Delivery Network to deliver websites assets include better performance, improved user experience for end users, right? Large scaling to better handle instantaneous high loads, distribution of user requests and serving of content directly from S servers so that less traffic gets sent to the origin server. This is how it works. So just study this, like here they have given like what is exactly happening over here, right? And then what are the requirements, how Requirements as in how to use the Azure Content Delivery Network. Okay. And then there are a few limitations also around this. Then its features. So these are the key features of CDN. Okay, so do read this. This is a small topic, but do read this. Okay, so next question is, can you give someone else access to your Azure subscription without giving them your username and password? So the answer is yes. Anyone can create their own Azure account and you can give them access to your subscription with granular control as to permissions. Okay. So basically, if you have to read more on this, this is how you can do that. You have a feature of role-based access controls, right? Access management for cloud resources is a critical function for any organization that is using the cloud. Azure role-based access control helps you manage who has access to Azure resources, what they can do with those resources, and what areas they have access to. Okay, so here do watch this video. Okay, this video lets you know basically what is Azure role-based access control and what you can do with it. Okay, here you have scope, role assignments, groups, multiple role assignments, how Azure RBAC determines if a user has access to a resource. Okay, this is important to understand how Azure identifies or determines that, right? Where is Azure RBAC data stored? Why is Azure RBAC data global? Okay, so do study this. So the answer is yes. Next question. Your company utilizes multiple regions to deploy Azure virtual machines. It is a company policy that users at each office create Azure resources only in the region that is closest to their office. What is the best solution to ensure these rules are followed? Okay. So here, obviously, since you want to create a policy, right? Related to region, you can always go with the Azure policy. Azure policy enforces rules that evaluate compliance based on your organization standards. You can apply on Azure policy to a management group or resource group. Basically, that limits the space available for resource creation. And by applying policies to management groups, subscriptions, and resource groups, you can control specific groups as a whole. And this policy allows resource creation only in specific regions. So you can define and enforce a policy that users in each office create Azure resources only in the region closest to their office, right? And more on this Azure policy, basically what is Azure policy, right? What are Azure policy objects, maximum count of Azure policy objects, right? So do read this, okay? Azure policy and Azure RBAC, Azure RBAC permissions in Azure policy. Okay. Azure policy objects, policy definition, initiative definition, assignments, maximum count of Azure policy objects. Okay. So please read this also. So the answer is Azure policy. When you create a resource group, you need to provide a location for that resource group. Yes or no? Okay. So note that the resource group stores metadata. Resource group stores the metadata about the resources. So when you specify a location for the resource group, you are actually specifying where that metadata is stored. And for compliance reasons, you may need to ensure that your data is stored in a particular region, right? So yeah, the answer is yes. Definitely, you will need to provide a location for that resource group. Okay. So more on this again, how you manage Azure resource groups by using the Azure portal. What is a resource group? How do you create that, right? Listing of resource groups, open, delete, deploy resources to a resource group, move to another resource group or subscription, lock resource groups, tag resource groups, export resources groups to templates, manage access to resource groups. Okay. So please study all these topics as well. The next question is, which service provides L3 to L7 filtering of network traffic for multiple Azure subscriptions and virtual networks. So answer to this question is Azure Firewall. And if you have to read more on this, again, understand what is Azure Firewall. Okay, there is Azure Firewall Standard, Premium, Basic, Feature Comparison, right? Here, if you study, Azure Firewall Standard provides L3, L7 filtering and threat intelligence feeds directly from Microsoft's cybersecurity. Threat intelligence based filtering can alert and deny traffic from two known malicious IP addresses and domains that are updated in real time to protect against new and emerging attacks. User configuration L3 to L7 connectivity policies. Right, so that's what was asked here. L3 to L7 filtering. So Azure Firewall is the answer. Which deployment method should you choose to prevent application downtime due to impacts such as data center failures? So here option 1 is correct. Azure architecture is organized based on regions and availability zones. Each region is a separate geographic area. Regions are further composed of multiple isolated locations called as availability zones. This availability zone is where your Azure resources are deployed, organized by one or more data centers. So, in other words, by deploying in two availability zones, even if one data center fails, you have increased availability so that there is no downtime. And do study more on this availability options for Azure virtual machines. So what are availability zones, virtual machine skill sets, availability sets, load balancer, Azure storage and redundancy, Azure site recovery. Okay, so please read these topics as well. So first one is the answer, deployment in two availability zones. Permissions are by default inherited by all resources residing in a resource group. The answer is yes. A resource group can be used to scope access control for administrative actions. By default, permissions set at the resource level are inherited by the resources in the resource group. And there is more on this, like what is Azure Resource Manager, then consistent management layer, right? So benefits of using Resource Manager, understanding scope, source scope, what is the resource scope, resilience of Azure Resource Manager, right? To study all these. Then which ways does the Azure Resource Manager model provide to deploy resources? Now answer to this is all of these: PowerShell, CLI, REST API, SDK, Azure portal. So if you see on Azure, again in the same article, Azure, what is Resource Manager? Here if you see Azure Resource Manager, which ways does the Azure Resource Manager model provide to deploy resources? So to deploy resources, you have Azure Portal, Azure CLI, Azure PowerShell, right? SDKs, REST clients, right? So you have all these things. Okay, all of these are mentioned over here. Right? So yeah, so that's it, guys. Thank you for your time, and we will see you in next video.